Make sure I'm all set up.
Yep. All right. Well, Greg, thank you for joining the Hollywood Times, my man. And I know you're just coming off this tour. So tell me a little bit about how that tour went. And I got to see one of your dates down in, was it Paula? Down in Fallbrook area in North San Diego. And I thought it was a incredible show. You guys put on a great performance. Really cool to hear that first album, which you actually didn't play on that record, but I think it's now, for how many years have you been with Three Doors Down? You've been playing over a decade now. So those songs probably have become yours. So tell us a little bit about the tour. How was that experience?
It was probably the most gratifying tour I've ever done, for sure. I mean, there we go. Because having something like that taken away from you, I mean, I don't think anybody ever could have thought like performing live music would be dangerous or like considered, something that shouldn't be, no gathering people, so, and obviously, that's how we make our livelihood. And so to have it taken away and then to go back and to see sold out shows, and it was like it never happened, for the most part. I mean, there were some shows in more metropolitan areas like Chicago, New York, where the crowds were a little thinner, but, it's understandable, I guess, in certain populated areas. But when you're in like North Dakota or, Mississippi, I mean, it's a little different, I think, different attitudes towards what was going on. And I think a lot of people you could definitely feel that people were ready for live music, like just something to get out of the house. And then, as a person, as I know that you go to a lot of shows and enjoy live music, what that, it's kind of, you need it. I mean, I need it. Even as a performer, I go to shows and I enjoy, and I have to there's nothing like seeing, music that you listen to in your car performed live, and just the energy of it, and just from the crowd, and feeling that there's a lot of happiness. So it was really enjoyable, and I'll never take it for granted again.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was very humbling for all of us to appreciate what we've taken for granted for all these years. I mean, God, up till that point when everything was shut down, it's like, hey, anytime you just look at the concert roster in your city, you have all of these bands playing, and, you're like, it's an embarrassment of riches. You're like, okay, tonight, should I go see this band? No, I have 4 other choices, and baseball games and football games and everything. And then suddenly it was like, holy crap.
You got Netflix. That's it. Lion King. Enjoy it.
So
great for the Tiger King guy, but
yeah,
anyway.
We know your favorites, Greg, but
right.
I wanted to ask you, I know what was unique about the show that I saw with you guys is there was no opening act, but there should have been an opening act, right? I believe that you guys were going to have like a co-headliner or someone at least supporting you through.
Seether had been our opener for majority of the tour. When we flew out to California to do the West Coast run, Seether had prior engagements for other festivals and things that were going on. So we had Theory of a Dead Man was supposed to be opening. They were going to open the show, and then they canceled, but it canceled their whole tour, not just our shows, but all their shows for, I guess, COVID concerns, that's all I heard, Okay. I don't know what that means. I mean, I'm concerned about it. I mean,
but you're not canceling a tour because of your COVID.
I was still gonna play a show, but you know what I mean. I hate to sound hard, Anyway.
But how many? Of the 4 guys in your band, I'm assuming no one got COVID during this tour when you were exposed to all sorts of germs and people, right?
Everyone's nobody. I got tested twice while I was out because we did get really sick, but it turns out you can just get sick and not,
regular sick.
Right. We got regular sick, and it was really bad. It was the worst I'd ever been sick. I was probably about 3 weeks of just not feeling bad, but just coughing or sneeze, mostly coughing. And so I went and got a test, and I went and got, and it came back negative, and it was still there going on for another week. So I went and got another test, and it came back negative, and Brad got sick. I think I got it from him, and then he got tested. God. It was negative. So, and then it went away, and, it was just regular. I think Reba McEntire was one of the first people that came out and said she was like RSV or something, respiratory or RVS. Anyway,
that sounds like
probably the same thing. Just it was a respiratory virus of some sort.
It doesn't stand for Reba McEntire.
I'll cancel some shows. Yeah, I know. I saw her. My wife said she got this. Maybe that's what she got. I go, sure. Why not? But yeah, we almost had to cancel a couple shows, but just because Brad was so sick in his voice. So, but we didn't. So
when I saw you guys, was he sick or, was he in good health at the time? Because his vocals were on point then.
I think he was fine then. That was, when we went to California, it was before that.
Gotcha.
It was right towards the beginning of it. We were in and out of bad weather and rain and traveling, and most people on tour buses and traveling around is going to get sick, and then when somebody gets sick, everybody gets sick.
Yeah,
it is the nature of the beast when you're doing what we do. But because obviously if somebody would have gotten COVID, from the looks of it, we would have all gotten it at some point, because we were all pretty much catering together in the dressing rooms or buses with the crew, because the crew people, like one person on the crew, if they, no one tested positive, but if they would have, I've seen other tours like halt everything and take crazy precautions. But as long as that's what they're comfortable with. But we weren't too concerned about it, but we were taking precautions. No guests backstage. As you know, when you came to the show, I was like, I came out and see you, because I'm like, we can't bring people back there, which I totally get. And so there were changes that we made, no meet and greets and things like that, that totally makes sense not to do in a situation like this.
And that's sad, but you guys were blessed, at least, that, because I got COVID like a year ago, and it was just debilitating. I'll tell you that. So I think the tour would have been canceled if someone got it, because you have to rest when you catch it. So that's and not even any low strenuous activity. You gotta basically shut down for a little bit. But I'm glad that didn't happen. It was a successful tour. I think you reached a lot of new audiences. I want to now kind of move this over to kind of the music side of things. Three Doors Down, I know probably your last big hit was It's Not My Time, and I know you played on that record. Rock and roll has basically over the years waned in popularity. Where do you see the future for the type of music you do? I love it. I grew up with Southern rock. So when I first heard Three Doors Down, when Kryptonite first came out, I said, oh my God, this is really clean sounding post grunge. It's perfect for radio consumption. And indeed, that became a huge hit in 99 or 2000. And, you obviously toured on that album as was it to the 20th anniversary or 21st something?
Well, supposed to be the 20th last year, but whatever you want to do. Yeah.
So 2 decades, that album and the follow-up, you seem to have stood the test of time. You're in the supermarket and you hear a lot of the songs from those 2 albums playing while you're doing your grocery shopping. It's become iconic in some way. But after that, it just kind of waned. Where do you see the future for Three Doors Down and rock music in general?
Well, the future for Three Doors Down, it's obviously going to be mostly built around live performance. We still write. I write all the time. Brad writes, but we do it separately, not really as a band so much. We still, I just sent Brad some stuff. Brad doesn't play guitar or anything, so I'll sit here and I've got my guitar always. I'm at my mom's house in Oklahoma, and I've always got, I'm always sitting there writing something. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna send that to Brad. So I'll just get my phone out, recorded just like a, or whatever. And I'll send it to him, and then maybe he writes something to it, maybe he doesn't. It's kind of like, you never know. You just kind of like, I think he could write something to this, and sometimes he'll hear something, but it's usually the song that you think that he will not do anything with. It'll be like, I got an idea for that. Like that, so you just never know. So you kind of like send him, it's like throwing darts at a dartboard. You just kind of keep sending him stuff and just see, because that's kind of how he writes. He's a drummer, and but he never really worked on playing the guitar or piano or anything. He just sings. Like he'll write a song, but he'll just sing it to you. So you kind of have to imagine the music behind it, But he'll totally hear it. You'll be playing for me. He's like, that's not it. That's not what I'm hearing. So you just sit there and he's like, that's it. I'm like, okay, So it's a different type of way to write, but you don't have to be in a room together with him, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? You can just send him ideas when you're writing, and then when he likes something, then you can start working on it. And with the way phones are, I'll send him GarageBand stuff, and he can write it at his house, and I can send it to Chris or Justin. We need a bass or whatever. You can just send these files, and you can do it from anywhere now, which is, it's not the same, but from a creative standpoint, it's sometimes like I'm in Oklahoma, and the other guys are in Tennessee, and Justin's doing his thing. So when we come back home, we kind of break and do our own thing. I mean, 20 years in this, I've been in the band 15, and it's kind of like, you'll be in the grocery store and I'll see Chris. I'll be like, cause it's like, I see the guy enough, and we've actually done that before. Like seeing each other, man, I gotta go say hello. Hey buddy, but
that's hilarious.
We love each other, but you know what I mean? It's like,
we all need a little space. I totally understand, especially when you're going on tour, and that's a lot of being with three dudes for an extended period of time.
But going to your point of where the state of rock music is there a need for like a Three Doors Down? Like, is that, because we're not going to change we've kind of messed with our sound a little bit, but it's just also been the changing of the band. The bands are going to change when you start changing members around. Like we lost one to an overdose. We got one guy who went to jail. We've got our own behind the music Skinner thing going, kind of, but I mean, it's just going to evolve into different things. And the thing is with Three Doors Down, it's kind of like, when I was a Puddle of Mud, and we were touring with them, and I was listening to them, they always reminded me, like, this is a rock band with a country singer, is what I always thought. It always sounded like, and then I met Brad, and he's like, hey man, right. I was like, oh, that explains it. You are country, And he listens, like, if you he listens to country music, like Garth Brooks is his favorite, and that kind of stuff. And so he brings that, and like Chris's favorite bands are like old Pantera or you know what I mean? Like, so we get, not that we kind of have to bridge the gap a little bit, but it makes sense. Like my mom's like loves it because I can understand what he's saying.
Yes.
So it's kind of like he's also a storyteller, and you can sing along with it, which makes it great for writing music. I mean, he's a really incredibly talented songwriter. I mean, catalog speaks for itself. I mean, I can go through, as you know, just I mean, there's a lot of singles that we're one of those bands where I don't know that band. I know that song, because you can't hear the intro to Kryptonite. I believe everybody on the world practically has heard that intro,
right,
at some point. But
actually, two of my favorite songs are, I think, is When You Joined the Band. It's Not My Time and Let Me Go. I think those two were actually superior and showed more of the band's growth compared to those earlier obvious hits, right? Were you involved in the writing of those two songs, Greg?
Pretty much. I mean, well, not Let Me Go. Is that the other one you said? Let Me Go is before me.
Okay.
But Not My Time was me. We all wrote that together. We all lived in a house in Tennessee when we did that record. We rented a house out for about 5 months. We all lived there and wrote in the basement and played and recorded it. So, I mean, you could say like I wrote my drum parts. I didn't really write any music, There was like,
but that song drives. The drums are a very key part of that song because it's movement.
Oh, yeah.
And even in that video when he's running around and jumping around like Invincible, that really is driven by the drums. I believe that's the key part of the song. So
also that song we wrote and we toured and we were playing it live before we ever recorded it. And that always is so helpful for a band to like tour a song, let it kind of evolve into what it is first, because I'll go see a band, live, and you'll hear it, and it's different than the record or whatever. It's just because in time these songs evolve into, like, at least with all my experiences, all the bands I've been in, pretty much, I mean, live, they kind of evolve into a little bit more energy and confidence, because when you're in the studio, you think you know what you're doing right, and it sounds good and stuff, but after touring, you know what works, and everybody's locked in. But that was probably one of the reasons why it helped that maybe that song drive a little bit more, is that we really kind of played it live and test ran it for a while, so to speak, But going to your point about the live music with rock and roll, because I wanted to hit on that, because I don't listen to a lot of rock radio, because whenever I turn on rock radio, at least in Middle America, it's going to be AC/DC, Shinedown, Puddle of Mud, maybe a Three Doors Down. It's the same stuff. I mean, I'm not talking bagging on my bands, but I mean, I want to hear other bands. I want to what's out there, and it's almost to the point of like how it was when I grew up, where it's about finding bands. It's about finding that band that nobody knows, but sometimes those bands would explode, but not, when we were growing up, but like now it's a lot more difficult because there's so many and they're harder to find, that haystack, looking for that needle, that haystack's getting bigger with the, you can go on YouTube and find millions of bands, but like I catch myself now, like when I go to like a Spotify or iTunes or whatever, the equivalent of like flipping through records now is going to similar artists at the bottom, and you're just like,
Spotify.
Who have I never heard of? Who have I never heard of? Oh, what is that? Okay, if they sound like Allman Brothers or whatever, I'm like, I'm gonna check it out. But a lot of times I'll find older bands that I've never heard. I'm like there's a band from England called Elbow, and I got into them, and I found out they had like 8 records. And it was like, I found this whole catalog of stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I just found this band, because they never come to America, and no radio stations are going to play them here. Nobody touches them. It's not safe. Yeah. So, but one thing I've noticed in rock and roll, which is crazy, is like I'm in Southern Oklahoma right now, this Oklahoma-Texas border. And there's a huge music scene going on right now. They used to be kind of called what do they call it? Red Dirt or something. But this isn't really, because we did some shows with a guy named Co Wetzel, and then we did some shows, or I went and saw a guy named Paul Cawthon, and they're Texas country, and there is nothing country about it. I went and saw them, and it's a rock band. It's like watching Stone Temple Pilots, kind of almost. Like the drummer in the country band also plays in a speed metal band, and so because when he's playing, all of a sudden I heard the bass drums goes. I'm like, what? This isn't country. If you got a double pedal and you're playing double bass drums, I'm like, that's not country. And everybody had tattoos of Pantera on their neck. They all had long hair. And I was
they
like,
were classified as country. I mean, that's
right. So this Texas country scene, because what's happening is, like, I live in Nashville, and the country scene there is really pop. It's like this really glossy, real safe. Everybody's pretty. Everybody has to look beautiful, and it's Texas country is going rock. It's getting guitar, drums, distortion pedals. Because I'm telling you, people think I'm crazy, but Dimebag Darrell had such an influence on musicians in Texas in this area that Pantera, every young musician wanted to be him. They wanted, because he's one of the greatest rock guitar players ever lived, and they're so proud of him in Texas. So like when you see these younger country bands, you're like, it's not country, it's more rock.
It's not
most of the bands we play with. So it's happening. You have to find it, but there's little pockets where it's you gotta have to look for the scene. You know what I mean? Like, remember Seattle was a scene back in when they went crazy, and every town has a scene
with the hair metal.
Right, every town has a scene, and like there's a scene kind of building here, and I'm like seeing more and more bands like pop up and play with, and I'm like, that are really good and interesting, and they rock, and they're like good musicians and good songwriters, similar to Three Doors Down, where you got this rock band with what makes him country is a singer singing about country topics, and he's got a voice that's clear and you can hear it. You know what I mean? It's not, he's just not screaming like Slipknot or whatever, and blast beats of, it's like there's melody there. So I think there is hope for catchy rock tunes that make you want to drive your car faster. You know what I mean? Like that kind of energy.
The model in the last 10, 20 years has been, you'll have a rock song put in there just for diversity's sake, and then gets on the playlist of radio. But radio is very reticent to play that. It's all hip hop. It's pop. But it's not even as pop as much as it's geared towards rap and hip hop now, if you listen to mainstream radio. And back in the day, songs like Here Without You or, When I'm Gone end up on playlists. But right now, radio is reticent to put anything rock, but except maybe a song or two. Have you noticed that? And how do you navigate those challenges?
Write a song about a wet ass pussy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Cardi B already did it, though.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, that's your number one song. So you tell me, how do you get, if you can get number one with that? Yeah. How, you tell me? I don't know. I thought it was like, as Willie Nelson said, 3 chords in the truth. Apparently it's not. It's about shock value. It's about, what can I do to make people like, oh my God, and it's getting to the point where nothing's doing that anymore, but everybody's offended. Everybody's offended now by everything that you do, but you can have a number one song about someone's wet vagina. But
but they're not offended by that.
But that's not offensive. You're losing me as far as like the culture of our country.
Greg, you're getting old.
And thank God, because I mean, I'm not wise. But I mean,
you are wise. We know.
Well, I've learned a lot from my, years of doing this and traveling. I've been all over the world and seen cultures, and it's just we're in a strange time right now in our country. Obviously, I mean, I don't have to say that. Everybody knows it. You can feel it, But that's why I like being out here in Oklahoma, in the middle of nowhere. So if anything happens, I'm safe.
Oh, I agree with you. I was looking at homes in Tennessee for that reason. And but I wanted to ask you, okay, Oklahoma, and you used to live in Los Angeles. You were a Valley boy, and how is that culture shift for you? And I see that twang. I hear that twang coming in. I know when you're in the South, it's pretty infectious, and you start talking like the people around you. But did you grow up in the South and then move out to LA? Okay, so it's just a return to roots, basically.
Right.
How's that?
I graduated in this little town. I grew up here my whole life. It's a one red light. I graduated with about 40 people, in high school, and not a lot of musicians to play with, But but I lived out. I had no neighbors. We had like all this land, and I just had a drum set in the garage. So I just played. And then I moved to LA. Didn't know anybody. I knew one guy who let me stay in his apartment floor, and I stayed there for like 3 years. But I met Alan and Natasha right when I moved there. I worked at a Guitar Center, and then obviously my life changed. And it's been, on this trajectory ever since that meeting, working at Guitar Center in Hollywood, and I'd been there. I'll tell you how quick it was. I remember watching the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase, setting up in Oklahoma City. I was in a cover band. And when the verdict was read, I was on tour with 11.
Wow.
So that's how fast, it's a weird way to judge it, but those were memorable moments. And I remember where I was when that happened. So I was like, what seemed like forever to me was very fortunate. I mean, it's kind of like out of a movie kind of thing. Like this kid moves out from the country, and I get a band with those two people, and the rest is kind of, because really playing with that. And then when we played with Chris Cornell, I mean, because like even in Nashville, when I say I played in Three Doors Down, oh cool. I was in Puddle, that's cool. Oh cool. I played with Chris Cornell. What? That's the one that everybody goes, what? And then I mentioned 11, and every musician out here is funny. It's like 11 was not very popular at all, but every musician I know in Nashville knows exactly who the hell they are.
Absolutely.
What I mean? It was a muso band. Every real musician kind of knows who they were. So it's like a little, I get a little step above,
feather in your cap.
Right. Well, it goes a long way as far as like
Yeah.
who you played with and who you've been associated with. And when you bring up 11 and Chris Cornell, automatically you get people's attention. They're going to take you a lot seriously. Then I played a band that had "She Fucking Hates Me" was our song. It's like, right.
And for the audience that doesn't know, Brett, 11 was the backing band for the Chris Cornell solo project. And that's when Greg and I first met. So you and I saw you on was it Euphoria Morning tour?
Mm-hmm.
And then also saw 11 play a bunch of shows in like the Troubadour of all places, one of my favorite venues.
With Queens of Stone Age.
Yes, with Queens of Stone Age. It's crazy because it was before they blew up with their big hit. So 11 was a very it's a project that you look back fondly on, right?
Well, going back to those bands that, like I said, like when you discover a band, when you find a band, that's one of those bands. That was one of those bands for me. I saw them on Beavis and Butthead when I was living in Oklahoma City, and I went and bought that cassette, and I wore it out before I even moved to LA. So when they walked in there, I knew that record frontwards and backwards.
Wow.
So I was already ahead of the game, so to speak. You know what I mean? And I was educated in jazz and music theory. And so obviously with Natasha, that came in handy, knowing like I could hold my own rhythmically. If they wanted to throw weird time signatures at me, I was like, okay, I could make it work.
Yes.
But
and describe the music of 11. It's jazzy, it's rock, but it's very indie. It's edgy. Years later, you guys did a record, right? You guys did a record or two. And
I did one record with them.
Okay.
I toured on Thunk, and then we did a record together. And then the Euphoria Morning stuff happened. And then they ended up going with Queens of the Stone Age, and I was with Puddle Mud.
Yeah,
and
interesting. Yeah, and how are they doing now? How's Alan and Natasha doing?
Well, Natasha passed away.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that was about, God, I want to say 2009. I could be getting it wrong. But Alan, there's a documentary about Alan that's really a beautiful film. It's called what's it called? Oh shoot, Alan Johannes I can't remember the name of it now.
I'll Google it later.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the only one about him. I can't believe that. Oh, it's such a good Unfinished Plan, I think is the name of it. But it's a documentary about him and his relationship with Natasha. And it's narrated by Chris Cornell, which is wow, is one of the last things he did. And it's like he's interviewed very close. It's him and Josh Homme from Queens of Stone Age being mostly. There's a lot of other people in it, but talking about Alan, but it's really about their relationship and about all the tragedy that's happened to Alan after that, because his mom died and his dad died. I mean, all these people died at the same time. And he went back to Chile, and he was born there, and he kind of got his roots back, and he got to meet his dad for the first time.
Wow.
When he was down there before his dad passed. And turns out his dad was a big performer, an entertainer on TV down in Chile. And his name was Danny
Johannes?
Danny Talent. No, like Danny Talent or Danny. So anyway, it's a great story, and it's fascinating, his life story and how his passion for love has kept him through all of this stuff that's gone on in his life. But I highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of his. It's such a good documentary.
I definitely want to check it out. Now, the last time I caught up with you, I know you had mentioned kind of how quickly that split happened after 11 and Chris Cornell and Audio Slave came into the play, which led you to join Puddle of Mud. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how quickly that happened, and kind of how interesting those trajectories went, obviously with 11 kind of splitting up in two directions.
Well, what had happened was we, after the Chris Cornell Euphoria Morning tour, we came back off tour and stuff, and we were actually in the process of starting a band. Like, Chris was going to be the lead singer. It was the same band that did Euphoria Morning, and it was good. We didn't have a name or anything. And then obviously I'm very excited about this being in a van with these people. And then the audio slave thing happened. And then that just devastated all of us. And we did a tour. 11 did the tour with Queens of the Stone Age, which you were talking about, the Troubadour. And then nothing was kind of going on. And I got a phone call about somebody looking for a drummer for this band. And I went to the audition, and I just knew that there was a record label money behind it. And I knew at this point, but being with 11 and struggling with this talented band and not really selling any records, I realized, like, at this point, oh, it's all about how much money the label puts into it. I see. And so when I went and did this audition, Fred Durst was behind it, and all these, and I was like, they're not going to let this band fail. Yes. So I ended up, and they knew me from 11, going back to the feather in the cap thing. When I showed up for the audition, like, oh, you were the drummer. And I was like, oh, so I knew, and they recognized me from that. I was like, okay, I got a good chance at this. And then that took off, and I went and talked to Alan and Natasha, and that was hard. I told them I was, going to be doing that, and they gave me their blessing. I mean, no, it was absolutely no hard feelings at all, because the 11 is them too. It really is at the heart of it. I mean, and Jack, if you want to be honest, he's the drummer of 11. I was the guy who was in the band for a while he went and played with Pearl Jam. But I mean, I was blessed to just even be in their presence and travel and play with them. I mean, so I owe everything to them, Yeah.
And that experience in Puddle of Mud, I know they're still going today. What made you decide to leave Puddle of Mud and join Three Doors Down somewhere in the mid 2000s?
Well, I mean, Wesley, God bless him. He was having a hard time with, his addictions and stuff. And I was trying to I was getting married. I wanted to have a family. I was the oldest one in the band. And we toured with Three Doors Down. And I remember, like, they all had families with them. The kids were on tour with them. It was like a family atmosphere. And I just thought about it, and I made a career decision. I was like, it had nothing to do with money, because I actually was a member of Puddle of Mud. I'm not a member of Three Doors Down. You know what I mean? I'll never be a member of Three Doors Down. It's just not just the way bands work. But I didn't care. I was just like, my whole thing in my whole life is like, what's going to make me happy? That's what's going to make my decision for me. When I have two things, what am I going to be happiest with? I think anyway, I mean, you can go with the best information you have, but the bottom line is you can't think about money. You can't think about success. You have to think about happiness. That's because obviously none of that brings happiness, So I thought about what makes me happy: playing music. What's my best chance of doing this when, let's say, I'm 60? If I still want to do it when I'm 60, which I probably will. I was like, I could see Three Doors Down play casinos, Here Without You, baby. I could see that. Puddle of Mud, I can't see old, she fucking hates me. I can't see that. And that's not, I don't know. And like I said, I wanted to have like a more stability in my family, and just have like, where I can bring my kids along, and I don't have to worry about what's going to be going on in the tour bus kind of thing, Turns out Three Doors Down did have many, we had a good time, but nonetheless, but you understand what I'm saying. And it turned out to be a good decision, because I still talk to Wes, and Wes is trying to, he's been sober. So, and because I've got 7 years, and I always try to check on him and say, hey man, you doing all right? Because I love the guy. I mean, he's a big part of my life. And so but I think he's doing good. I mean, from what I understand, I haven't spoken to him face to face in a couple of years, because I've really only seen him like once or twice since I left the band. But both times they've both been totally fine. Hugs and smiles. And so it's not like a woman, it's not like, oh, sure, bygones be bygones. It's not like that. But it's much more easier to heal, I guess.
Yes. And you were there for Puddle Mud's. The main part of their success was their first two albums, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing you at the Roxy. So we saw you right up front on one of the first shows, right when Control came out.
Right.
And that was pretty amazing. And really, that's kind of rare now when you have a band like, Fred Durst was behind ensuring the success, and MTV, right, was a big part of
TRL,
making sure Puddle of Mud was a hit.
Right.
I don't see that
There's a
anymore.
priority. No, because there's no money in it. They're not going to make their money back. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially a rock band. I mean, I'm sure you're getting the Megan Thee Stallions and, the certain, well, obviously with Ed Sheeran, where the labels got, we're all going to put it on certain artists, and these safe artists that we know that are going to produce hits, and then they get like a lot of the hip hop and stuff, they've got the producers and songwriters. There's a handful of them that do most of everything. And, does she have a look? Does she have an image? Is she shocking? It's all about a shock value, So, because that's kind of what it is like with Nicki Minaj and all that kind of like really confusing. I don't know what messages they're trying to portray. And I don't think there is much of one. But
it's just for the shock value. Yeah.
I can't believe that they're in the same like line of work as John Lennon. You know what I mean? It's just like, it shocks me. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't, like I said, call me crazy. I've been listening to a lot of 70s and 80s yacht rock, Christopher Cross and Little River Band. I'm like, that stuff just chills me out. I'm like, it puts me in a happy place. So I just
Greg,
like
you're sounding so old now. You're sounding like my parents.
I know. And
yeah,
well,
like
that's
I'm the
good.
same way. I'm like listening to their music, and I'm like, oh my god, Air Supply, wow.
There was some. Hey, I'm telling you, man, they knew how to write some hooks back in the day. Yeah, you tell me you're gonna listen to "Sailing" by Christopher Cross and go, "That's 10cc. I'm not in love." That's a good song.
Mm-hmm. And then as you realize the genius of it looking back. And especially in the 70s when they didn't have all the Pro Tools, and the 80s, you had to rely on real talent because you got to do that shit in one take. I mean, it's amazing the talent that we had in the 80s. It's, especially
there's so many mistakes also that was in that stuff that they let slide, and, sloppiness. Like you listen to the Stones and you listen to the sloppiness of the Rolling Stones of the old stuff, but that's what made it cool. You listen to Charlie Watts. I mean, there's nobody that had that groove. I mean, it wasn't like he was some, crazy chop drummer, but it wasn't about that. He knew exactly where his spot was, and it was solid.
It was for the song. And I think, I think there may have been some bands that kind of go off on the excesses of certain, guitar flourishes or making it all about that. But I think the real hits that have stood the test of time have been the ones that have been very balanced. And I feel that way about Three Doors Down, actually, especially when I was listening to you guys play. I said, these songs, even some of those album cuts from Better Life, they stand the test of time. And I think, really the band is very balanced. It's not like, one instrument or one ego is bigger than the rest. It's that's, I think, a characteristic of Three Doors Down is the balance in a lot of those songs. So I hope you guys make more songs. I think even some of the newer ones, like what is it, In the Dark, that, like, some of those songs are too bad the audience has dwindled since, but the songs in themselves are really solid and good. And I just hope you guys keep writing, new music.
We will. I mean, whether another album comes out, I don't know, because what's the point of an album, a full length album these days? No one
wants albums.
Just people put a song out. Singles. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure from here on out for a while, we'll probably just be putting out a song or EP or something like that.
Yeah.
If, because I don't know the strength of what a record's for, other than to promote a tour, whereas back in the day, you used to tour to promote a record. Now you put out a record to promote a tour. So it's just kind of different the way the industry is now.
It's fascinating, but one of the things that struck me that you said earlier is that you guys were selling out and basically in this last tour. And I think a lot of it has to do with you guys have a real strong fan base. Whether it's the casino circuit or whatever it is, audiences are coming to see you guys. And I think a lot of it has to do with Brad's unapologetic stances on politics. I think he's like not afraid to say, okay, I
Oh
support.
no,
Yeah. So
I didn't know what "Let's Go Brandon" meant. He kept saying that to me on stage for the last probably 4 shows.
you're like, who
But
the
it
fuck's
was
Brandon?
well, he kept saying that, and I thought he meant because he's waiting for me to start the song. Because I start the songs usually, and sometimes I look over and the guitar player's not ready. But Brad doesn't know that. I'm like, I know, but I gotta wait for him to give me the okay before he's over there changing the guitar. And so he kept going, "Let's go, Brandon," and then the crowd would go crazy, and I'm like, okay. And then after a couple of days, I'm like, what is this? What is "let go"? What does that mean? And then he told me. I'm like, so now I get it, and now I'm seeing it And then they started chanting it at our shows or whatever. But no, he's just also. We ended up canceling a couple shows because they wanted to make mandatory vaccinations.
Thank you.
I mean,
I so appreciate that.
I mean, I'm not going to say anything of pro or anti about it, but there's a slippery slope when the government can make you inject something into your body to go to work or to live your life. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but if they said, we need everybody to cut off their left leg. If you're going to go to a restaurant, you cannot have a left leg. I mean, where does it end? We can inject you in something that you don't know what it is, but we're going to tell you what it is. But to force people to do that, I mean, whether you get it or not, I totally I understand both points, but to make something mandatory and legal, like you have to do this, it's crazy to me. I mean, it is, whether it's not about my freedoms, I'm just saying, think about it.
That's nuts.
Think about the precedent you're setting.
I lost so much respect for the Foo Fighters when they did that. So I really applaud you guys because I want to go to see a show without having to show a passport, and
your
even
papers,
when I
see
saw
your papers.
We saw Luke Bryan. I covered the Luke Bryan show here, and they required you to show proof of that. And I said, even though I have the proof, I don't feel that it's okay for people that say could be susceptible from effects of that shot to be forced to. And what if they do it just because they want to see their favorite band? And what if something adverse happens? And I could not live with it if I were the band and, someone had to see my show with that proof. So, it's really, like you said, a slippery slope. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for standing up for the people that come to your shows. That's big. And that's
it's a precedent that you have to, once you okay something like this, what is it? It was not, where does it end? I mean, that's about as crazy as I couldn't imagine, but oh well,
it's all good. So what excites you in modern day music? I know you're going back to listening to some of the oldies, which is what I'm doing as well. But is there anything new besides? I know you had talked about the scene in Texas, this kind of like renegade country, I guess, that's very rock influenced. Any other, maybe even other genres that are worth looking at today in the modern 2021 music diaspora?
Well, like I said, the North Texas country, that Texas country scene, that guy was Co Wetzel, and I really liked him. There's, like I said, that band Elbow, which they've been around for a while, but I just discovered them, and they're kind of like a Radiohead, but not quite so abstract. They stick with melody a little bit more, don't take it off to a crazy place like Radiohead can do. But they're a British band, and it's kind of Peter Gabriel, almost Genesis-y kind of, but modern sounding and just beautiful sounds. Like the productions sound really good. Actually, we did some shows with a band called Blackberry Smoke. they've been around for 2 decades, but I just now started getting hearing about them. I've heard about them for a while, but getting to see them live, always when you watch a band live, like, wow, these guys are good. I mean, we went and saw them, and they've been playing together for 20 years. Some of them are brothers, and you're like, they're just tight. They're like the Allman Brothers, or like that Skinnerdies. They're from Georgia. Black Crows, kind of.
Oh, I love the Black Crows.
Yeah, just a cool melody, Southern, good guitar solos, good grooves, background vocal harmonies. You know, what else? A friend of mine turned me on to what's her name? Sierra Ferris.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of her. He just turned me on to her like the other day, and I heard her, and I was like, her voice was like astounding. It was like, it sounded like she was some country singer from like the 20s, like the 1920s. You know, like that old. She sounded like this old voice, but she's this young, cute girl, but she sounded like this old soul, like a Dolly Parton or something, and Tammy Wynette or whatever. And it was just interesting. It's just her playing the hell out of a guitar. Like, she's a guitar player, and it was just her singing, and that was just like, that's a talented girl. But yeah, I don't really listen to a lot of music until for the most part, somebody turns me on to it. Like, a friend of mine's like, check this out, or I play a show with a band like a Co Wetzel, I'm like, or a Blackberry Smoke I'm not familiar with, and I watch them, and I'm like, okay, I'm a fan. You know what I mean? Because I saw you live. I actually got, and then getting to know them and realize that they're great people. It's hard not to, you want to root for them. So anytime I can plug them for anything, or listen to them, or download, or buy, or I got me a Blackberry Smoke shirt, so did my part somewhat. But no, I mean, there's music out there, but like I said, we're back in a time when we were kids, when we were like getting old magazines, or back in the day when, I don't know if you remember, you're probably not old enough to remember, where you used to trade cassette tapes, and you can go in the back and you find these people in these magazines, and they would be like, I'm from New York, I got all these bands in, and I'd be like, oh, because we had Pantera, nobody knew who Pantera was, and they had, these old Testament or Anthrax. We were all these speed metal guys that were trading all these. I was totally into that when I was growing up. But it's kind of back to that, where like, it's about discovering bands. So it's like, if you find a band you love, go to their show, buy their album, buy their shirt, do something, because I mean, I guarantee you, and listen to the Foo Fighters, they're not making the money that we think that they're making. Right. I mean, they're doing, but the trade-off is you do what you love.
Absolutely. Anything in country that you like, or is Nashville? I know you have close proximity.
Nothing in Nashville. I mean, really, I love Chris Stapleton, but he's not country to me. He's almost like Motown.
I love Chris Stapleton.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the obvious him. I mean, there's people out there. I just don't. I'm not gonna. There's one guy up to that's kind of cool here in Oklahoma as part of a scene here. His name's J.D. McPherson. Have you ever heard of him? He's a young guy, and it sounds like Little Richard. Gotcha. And does not look like anything like Little Richard. He looks like a country singer or something. And you listen to it, and it's that style of music, almost like a whole lot like Jerry Lee Lewis with a brass section, but it's modernized. And if it's like, he can sing his ass off, and it's catchy, and it just makes you want to dance. And it's just very kind of what reminds me of what Amy Winehouse did when she came out, and all of a sudden she had this style. Everybody said, what is that? It's like, no, that's an old style that she's just bringing back. That's the old jazz style that Tony Bennett, the old bebop singers, she's just reinventing it. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what just J.D. McPherson's kind of doing with that old style of music. It's kind of reinventing it. It's very similar to it, but it's got a modernized taste to it.
I love it. I love it. Now, wrapping up here, what is your favorite Three Doors Down song? And what is your favorite out of all the bands you played, from Chris Cornell to 11 to Puddle of Mud, overall song, and why?
My favorite Three Doors Down song, I guess to listen to, I always like this song called Only One You've Got. which was off that same record with Not My Time. It was one of the first records I did with them. And I think because I was turning when we wrote that song, me and the guitar player, we were down drinking a big bottle of wine, like our probably fourth bottle of wine at that time. And I was turning them on to, I was like, man, have you ever heard of Imogen Heap? And he's like, who? I was like, Imogen Heap. And it's this, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but it's this woman, and she sings everything. There's just her voice. And she'll do like all the background, the music and stuff, but it's all her voice. It's like Bobby McFerrin kind of style. That Don't Worry, Be Happy, where there's no instruments. It's just him singing all the parts. So you hear but she kind of reminded me. Right, but she kind of reminded me like almost like a Natasha's type. Like I could just tell like this woman's like a genius or something. There's something going on there. But anyway, we were listening to this song, and we were just in this place, and then he just started picking up the guitar. We were writing that song kind of together. And it became a song. And I remember we were watching So You Think You Can Dance. Remember that show? I think probably still on. It's
oh
like
my
God.
Show. It's like the American Idol for dancing.
No, that's the celebrity dance. Oh yes, but yeah, you're right. No, So You Think You Can Dance is the real dancers. But anyway, we saw woman I remember once dancing to that song, and it never was a single or anything. But I thought that was beautiful that I got to see this woman do that to that song. But I guess my favorite song I ever played with all the bands combined is probably going to be Steel Rain.
Steel Rain. Okay. And which band was that?
That was Chris Cornell. And if as far as a reason why I love to play that song, just listen to it. You'll hear it right off the bat. You know what I mean? When playing that song with him and hearing his voice come in my ear, screaming this song, and knowing that I'm playing on stage with this right now as a part of this. Yeah, just listen. It's called Steel Rain off of Euphoria Morning. And we played that live. It was the last song of the night we played. And that's easily my favorite song I've ever played with anybody.
Oh, that's great. And a little bit about Chris. I know there was that sad passing just a few years ago. I remember that day when I heard the news. I said, wow, he's pretty young. This is crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. How are you dealing with that? And how's his family? I'm sure everyone's devastated at this point.
Well, that was kind of hard to believe. I saw him the week before, a week to the day before he died, in Atlanta. They played a show. And I didn't see him after the show. After the show, went backstage, and I saw Matt Cameron, the drummer. It was a Soundgarden show. And I was like, where's Chris? He goes, oh, he went straight to the hotel. I was like, huh. Usually people don't go straight to the hotel, like straight from the stage to a hotel. And I was like, the only reasons I would think would be like, you got a flight to catch because you're going home or something. Or you just don't want to be around anybody. You know what I mean? That kind of, if that makes, I don't want to be around anybody. So that's probably where I lived, like probably where he was at that time. Like, I just don't want to be around anybody. I just want to go to my hotel room and whatever. But not to say that I never would have thought, but I mean, looking back at it, but I mean, I got a text from Alan that morning and I didn't even know. And I looked at my phone, it was just from Alan, and it said, something's not right. This can't be real. And I remember I was like, what does that mean? And all of a sudden I just like, that's not good, whatever this is. And then my wife told me, and she's like, you gonna sit down? I was like, oh, okay. So she made me sit down and told me, and I was like, kind of stunned. It just didn't make any sense. I was like, what? And then I just the only time I really got emotional about it was they did an anniversary concert, and I didn't go, but I did watch it online. And I was just kind of like, the enormity of like his impact really hit me. Like, wow, this guy really had a huge, I mean, I knew he was the greatest male rock singer of all time for most, debatable, arguably. So, but I didn't realize that, you could sell out the, Staples Center for a memorial. I just, because I went to Natasha's memorial. She had hers at the Ford Theater, the Fonda Theater in LA, and it was packed. Tenacious D hosted it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's when it was like, it was I guess the realization of it really hit me. And I was just felt blessed. Like, I mean, just to this day, I mean, I got a brief moment of our lives connected for a while. And because we traveled on the tour bus together, there wasn't like a rock star thing. Like he flew to the shows or had his own thing.
Yeah.
He was on the
Right
bus
there with
us.
you guys.
I remember once my wife was on tour and we'd always sleep in the bunk, you know, I'm laying in my bunk and everybody's asleep except for her and Chris. I'm like, my wife's in the back lounge of this bus with Chris Cornell. I'm like, yeah, I don't stand a chance. If you know, obviously nothing happened, but you know what I mean? I'm just like, that thought hit me. I'm like, oh my God. You know, my wife is back there with him alone now.
Yeah.
No, it was it's definitely highlighted my career. I mean, I don't know how where I can go from that. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, that's just fine with me. If my legacy is just being a part of that guy and part of his career and his legacy. I mean, I've definitely come from this little town of Oklahoma. I've definitely, you know, accomplished more than I ever dreamed I would.
Yeah. But what I admire most, Greg, about you is your humility, your down-to-earthness. I think that's from your strong roots. But I know how dedicated you are to your family, to your wife and your children. Tell us a little bit about kind of your what it's like to just have a quiet suburban life, basically, or rural life. I think it would be even a stretch to call it suburban out there.
Well, in Nashville, I live in Nashville, well, outside of Nashville, on a lake. And I really enjoy it. I mean, it's way more affordable. I was talking to my friend Brian in LA yesterday, and I was like, hey, what? He goes, I just left the gas station. I was like, what'd you pay? He goes, I paid $4.79. I'm like, damn. I'm like, oh my God, I paid $2.89 for it yesterday. And I'm like, I do not miss that.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I really missed about California was the weather and the Mexican food.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't miss paying astronomical mortgage, rent, property taxes, traffic. I mean, just the people. I mean, I'm obviously my friends and the people that I met, because I don't have anything against the people of California. It's not like that. But there definitely is a different realization when you're from here and you move to LA and you meet people that really are just lived in this bubble their whole life. And it's like, you don't have any idea what's going on out there, do you? You don't even know really what life is like in Louisiana, huh? No, it's like there's LA and then the rest of it, America. Right. It's kind of its own thing, and New York, I guess, to some extent as well. Yes. But just I like if something is 20 miles, it takes 20 minutes.
Right, that simple math.
It's so much easier. It's like, I got to go to LAX. Now in LA, it's about time. You're getting in at 5:15. I'm not coming to get you. I'm not getting anywhere near you because it's going to take 2 hours to get there. But
you're lucky.
Right. And, but it's kind of like when you live there, people ask, how do you stand all this up? Well, it is the way you just accept it. You have to. But I definitely I couldn't afford, we had a kid and we lived in Sherman Oaks, and like a private school was going to be like $20,000 or $25,000 a year for kindergarten. And and I was like, public school system is not going to be in the Valley. I'm not letting him do that. No. And then so we ended up really kind of moving mostly because of him. I mean, not because but we wanted to go. And it's funny, now that we're in Nashville, you wouldn't believe the amount of people we meet from California that live in Nashville. Oh my God. It's crazy. I mean, the guys in Corn live there. I'll see the Hailstorm live. I mean, you see, because it's funny, it's like you live in LA and all these bands live there and you don't really run into them. But now they're living in Nashville and you run into I run into almost a musician or country or rock. Oak Ridge Boys. I ran into a couple of guys from the Oak Ridge Boys one day at Walmart, and then one day I'm at a restaurant and there's Ricky Skaggs and all these country legends, and you see them, and it's not that big of a town when you get here. Like Los Angeles, you've got San Fernando Valley, you got Los Angeles, you got Santa Monica, you got Anaheim, you got Long Beach. It's all kind of one big thing. Whereas Nashville's just this town, this little town, about the size of Hollywood, really, this little town. And then surely you're going to bump into somebody at a bar or a club or something. I mean, it's a very friendly places in Tennessee, especially for musicians. You've got the songwriters, you've got the artists, you got the musicians. There's kind of three groups there. And everybody, all the musicians, like in LA, where they kind of stab each other in the back for anything, it's the opposite in Tennessee. Whereas like some people have too much work. Like, hey, I'm playing with Hank Williams Jr. Can you play for so and so?
Right.
I need a fill-in drummer. I mean, everybody just kind of does that.
It's a guild. And
it's definitely a family where like all the drummers and guitar players and bass players, they all stick together. Because you get your Luke Bryant's, your Brad Paisley's, your artists, and then you get your songwriters who write the songs. I mean, so there's like this, and they've got their own clubs that they go to. They got their own, so it's kind of interesting how it all works
there. I love
it's different.
I mean, some of those venues, they're right on the main street. What's it called again? Broadway. And then there's also Music Row, which is a separate area. I mean, I just love going there and just walking around and peeking your head in one bar, listen to a song or two, then move on to the next.
If you ever get a chance, I highly recommend, there's something called Loud Jams. And they should do this everywhere in the country, but I've only seen it in Nashville. And what they do is, like, I've been a part of it. And what my experience was is they'll have a theme night. Like,
yes.
It could be a band theme, like a Police, or it could be a genre theme, like yacht rock, or it could be Motown, or it could be anything. And what they'll do is they'll send all these different musicians in town, like play with different people, pick 5 songs. And so I'll pick 5 songs, and then they'll say, okay, well, you're going to play this one and this one. Okay. So I learned those 2 songs. It's up to me to learn them. And then I get there and I play them on stage. And then I'm playing with a guitar player. It's same thing. Like, he's just been told to learn it. And we meet for the first time on stage. And we play this song live with the whole band. And we've never practiced it, just meeting each other for the first time.
Yes.
And we play it live.
And you just jump right in.
And then, and the next song's the same thing. Another group of people, and they just keep doing that. And so the whole crowd is musicians. And what you end up doing is you start meeting all these cool people and great musicians. And it's such a great way to network in a music town. It's like everybody's just, you get to really find out playing with people, like who you like playing with and who's really good and who's really quick to pick this up, or who you really like is just hanging out with. And it's such a cool, and they do it like 5-6 times a year. They've also got like a metal one, like does all metal night, and everybody does all these songs. And they'll have like a industrial one. They do like all industrial bands from 9 Inch Nails to whatever. So it's like they do these themes, and you'll go jam with just random musicians. And
Greg, you go do that on your spare time? Okay.
I've done a few of them. Like, you'll have like musicians from big bands go there. I mean, it's not like, it's a mix of local guys and a mix of, like, I saw a buddy of mine play Modern Day Cowboy with the drummer for Tesla.
Nice.
So he's like in a cover band. He's playing with the guys from Tesla on this song. I mean, so those things happen. They'll have, like, Billy Sheehan was up there, played Shy Boy, like by David Lee Roth, with the drummer from Greg Bissonette was on drums, and then like the singer was a local guy. And like, where is that going to happen?
Only Nashville.
Well, it's cool, and they do that. It's those kind of things that make Nashville really fun as a musician too.
What was your favorite experience doing that? What's the coolest experience that you can share with us, where you jumped in and played in one of these impromptu?
I did that. I was beating the shit out of this guy's drum set on one of those songs. It was a Bullet Boys song. They remember them? I don't know if it was an 80s band, but and then all of a sudden the drums, the rack tom went flying off the drum, and then the drummer whose stuff it was came up there, and he's like, I was trying to set him. I'm like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I forgot that it's like this guy's actual baby's, his baby. And I'm playing it like it's mine, putting on a show, and I'm like, whoa, I can't do that. I can't. So yeah, that was kind of, that was one of the things. And then one time we did a song that's in 7/8 and the guitar player started in 4/4. And if you're a musician, you know, it's like, that doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Off.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But for the most part, they've all been quite good. Like I've never gone up there. And I mean, every time I played with any of these cats, they know there's, I've never been up there with somebody who didn't know their stuff, other than the one guy starting the song wrong, which he ended up getting it right. And as soon as we walked off stage, he goes, "Did I start that song in 4?" I was like, "Yeah, you did." "Oh my God." You know, so yeah. But no, I've yet to really play with any musicians that were even subpar. You know,
Yeah,
they've all
the
been
talent
pretty,
that
there's a lot of musicians there, a lot of good ones.
That's great. What projects can we expect from you going forward? Is it more tours from Three Doors Down? Maybe some downtime where you're writing some music? What's ahead for you in the
Well, I'm
next
opening
year?
up a coffee shop. That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm in
tell
Oklahoma.
us a little bit about it.
Well, it's going to be called Greg's Dancing Goat. I got a little cup here, if you can see that little logo.
I love it. Did
Got
you
the little
design that
goat.
yourself? That goat is pretty fancy.
It's a little dancing goat, but it's also a record.
Yes, it's vinyl. I love it.
Yeah, because I'm going to put vinyl in there like a music store for people to come through, and they can pick out records and put them on a turntable. We can listen to vinyl records, and we're going to listen to whole records. We're going to listen to songs. So if you know, if you want to listen to Pink Floyd, we're going to listen to the whole Dark Side of the Moon. We're not going to listen to a song. You know what I mean? So, and I'm from here, and
it's your hometown.
And it's a little town, and my dream would be a rock guy or rock musician, you know, wanting to be in Motley Crue or whatever, you know, when you're growing up. Seems such like impossible thing to me, growing up here, because I'm like in the middle of Oklahoma. I mean, where am I? How? You know, how am I going to? But you know, now I've watched, you know, saw my life standing back, looking back. I'm like, there was no secret. There was no. Actually, all I did was just go do it.
Yes,
that's the only thing I did. I made a lot of wishes along the way and had a lot of dreams, but I just kept going forward. So I want this coffee shop is just, you know, a lot of younger kids go there, and growing up in a place that if you dream big, you feel like it's hopeless because like how? And so, and then a lot of those kids will turn to drugs and alcohol, and because they lose hope and they just don't think that, you know, can't do it because I'm from here or because of this. And I'm like, they'll say, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm like, fuck that. I'm like, it's not about that. It's not about being good. It's not about being what you do. It's about loving it and working hard. That's what it is. If you love it and work hard, you're going to get better. It's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get. But it's the same thing with life. The more you keep going forward, as soon as you get sedentary and stop, you get eroded. You know, life just goes by you. And then the older you get, when you're talking about your parents and 50 or, you know, how old, you know, you realize like, damn, this goes by fast.
Right.
Like everything is like, it puts it the perspective of it. Hold on, I gotta. I'm gonna have to call him back. It's my carpenter at the coffee shop. I just want younger people here to see, like, you know, you can go do whatever it is you want. There's no secret to it, really. You just have to go and do it.
But I think it's more than that. I think it's your people skills, your ability to roll with the punches. I think, you know, I've watched you over the years. You're and you also have an instinct. I think, you know, jumping to 3 successful projects, or, you know, making the decision, you know, to move and navigate the way you did, I think has something to do with why you're here today, right? Wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to do the best you can with your judgment and decision making, what you think is the best. But like I said, it goes back to what's going to make me happy, and playing music makes me happy. And like, what is going to create the longest journey in my life where that's going to be a part of it, you know, where, and that's just kind of where it led me, you know. And like I tell people, it's like the 2 things and just that I can only tell you to not be is don't be an addict and don't be a dick, and you can probably be okay. and
Yes.
accomplishing what it is if you can just be a pleasant person and not be all fucked up on drugs and alcohol, life
You kind
might treat you pretty good. You know what I mean? It's just, that's what I found is like, life's not, you don't need to
complicated.
make it harder. You don't need to, what was the quote? I think it was Warren Buffett or somebody said it's like, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging.
Right.
It's the same
that
thing.
easy. Yeah.
It's like, you can find yourself in a bad decision, but it's also knowing when to get out of it when it comes to something like that. But
Cut your losses.
right. And knowing when to cut and run. But
yeah.
And I've had to do that, and it's not easy, but you have to do what's best for you and what makes you happy, as long as it's something that's healthy.
Yeah, because your journey getting sober was no easy one either, right? You went through your ups and downs there, but you learned. I think that's the important thing, is a lot of people don't learn from their mistakes.
Right. No, I mean, alcohol was my drug of choice, and it tried to kill me several times, but I'm still here, and I'm just way more happier. I mean, I can't believe it's just like, it's the same thing that everybody else says. I wish I'd have done it earlier, but I just thought it was impossible to me. I was so like, I didn't want it. I just didn't want to. And just one day I woke up and was like, I want to, and I committed to it. And then it just changed. And I was so proud of myself for doing it. I never felt like, I've been proud of myself for my life, obviously, but that was I was really impressed with myself for being able to do that. And then that in turn just gave me like the confidence to like, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to change my life around. I'm going to do some good. I'm going to pay it forward, as they say. I'm going to try to do something and take this in where a responsible adult should take it, and explain, see if I can help somebody from making the same stupid decisions I made. Maybe, I don't know.
Because you were actually dead, right, for a few minutes there. And
they had to resuscitate me. Yeah, from a nasty fall. Lost all my hearing in my right ear, fractured my skull. And I mean, it was bad. And I just kind of thought about it, just how lucky I was to be alive, not paralyzed. My story's not is not going to end that way. That I was given a chance, like it almost did. It almost ended that way, and that was almost your legacy, and it scared the shit out of me. And so I was like, I can't let my family and my son have that. Oh, your dad's the drummer that was drunk, fell in cells, and died. Killed. That was horrifying. So that changed. I mean, it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Was falling down those stairs and almost dying.
That's amazing. But, that was what, 2013, you said?
It was 7 years ago. So yeah, about that.
Wow. And they say your body regenerates every 7 years. So you're a brand new person now, with a coffee shop opening up.
There you go.
Hey, tell us, when we walk into Dancing Goats, what is that experience going to be like?
It's going to be cool. It's going to be cool music on vinyl being played.
What kind of coffee are you going to serve? What's your
regular coffee? No,
just regular coffee.
Just coffee, cappuccinos, coffee specialty drinks, normal, nothing crazy.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I'm starting off simple. It's I'm starting my own shit, so I'm just baby stepping it.
Yeah. And what inspired this, besides wanting to? Was it to kind of have something in your hometown, what? Okay.
That's what it was. It was like, that's where I felt I could make the biggest impact on, where my name goes farther, and people would listen to my story more so than they would in Nashville or anywhere else, because I'm a local guy here, and there wasn't a coffee shop here, because now that I'm sober, when I come back, I'm like, oh, there isn't a place to get coffee. I'm like, this should be the best place to get it. They legalized marijuana, and there's a dispensary like the next building. And I'm like, that's a good combo. I get coffee and pastries and vinyl records. I'm like, I don't know how that's going to miss.
You got your ready market right there.
I'm telling you, it's right next door to the weed dispensary.
Is this your first business, Greg?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm nervous.
Congratulations. No, it just, it seems like you researched the fundamentals and you got the market there. So, you chose to do something that no one has done yet there, because there's no coffee shop. So I think you'll be successful. And I
think
think
it'll work.
your instincts are pretty good. So congratulations. Thank you for taking the time. I'm so glad to see this. You want to let us know once this is open? When's it going to open up? And are you going to do
I don't have
grand
a date. I don't have a date right now, but I'm looking at the beginning of next year.
Okay.
So I'm like still finishing up the renovations. It's a building that I have here. It's my mom owned it, so it's just been sitting there empty. So that's why I'm turning it into something. I'm trying to figure if you can put a coffee shop in a car trailer or a truck, you know, I figure I can put it in this building.
Oh yeah, and if you own the land, one of your costs is not rent. So that
Yeah,
is
that have no rent. So that's a big expense that I don't have to worry about.
That's huge. You just need to pay the people that operate it and make sure
Send
that
employees.
It's well.
And that's the thing, is that leaves me enough money to really take care of my employees and pay them well, to where I'm not going to have a different barista every 2 months.
Right.
You know, that's because I'm definitely wanting to make sure my employees are paid well, because I know working, when you're paid well, you'll work harder and you'll be honest.
Absolutely. No, congratulations. Let me know when the opening is, and if I'm
I will
free,
definitely
I'll fly out and be there for your big day. So
you have to fly to Dallas and drive about an hour and a half, but you'll get here.
oh, that's not far. I mean, that's pretty much like LA driving, right? LA driving,
True. And it's an hour and a half straight, no traffic. So it's just country roads, highways, and nobody, you have to worry about trucks. That's it.
Yeah, it's not sitting in the parking lot of the 405 until you get like 2 miles later.
I know.
Okay, my car's overheating now.
Right.
But thank you, Greg. And where can people find you? You know, I guess does this Dancing Goat have a Instagram yet, or
well, it's got a website, right? I've just put a landing page up, and it just tells it's just one page where you can leave your email, and then I can contact you when I'm ready. I'm opening. I'm going to be selling merchandise, shirts and mugs and stuff, and eventually selling coffee. I'm still in the process of finding the coffee that I really like with my roaster, because he's trying different roasts, which has been a lot of fun. So because I definitely want to package my own. But like I said, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. Right. Yeah. I'm starting simple, but yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a middle of country kind of place. I'm gonna have one of those places like, have you ever go to this town? There's this crazy little wacky coffee shop with gold records and stuff on the wall. It's weird. So it might be interesting.
No, I think you got the vibe down, but offline, I'm going to shoot you a little link to my friend's coffee, and you may be interested in it. So
of course I will. Yeah. I'm already interested.
Yeah. It's actually, she sources it from volcanic soil. So it's got all these like organic properties. So
okay,
maybe something you like, but hey, you got to worry about cost, right? So
right, keep costs down.
Things you got to balance. So I'll shoot that over to you. And once again, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon. Let's catch up right before the opening of your coffee shop, and I'll let you know.
I will let you know, Mark.
All right.